Welcome to the swamp. Jesus Christ be praised. Henry has come to see us. Kingdom Come Deliverance has had me in a love-hate relationship since it came out back in 2018. And with the hype of the advertising of the newest game coming out into the early next year, I decided it was time to revisit Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and see how it holds up. Let's get into it. My name is Excalligator. I rate games based on many categories that would fit into most survival games, based on a 1 to 5 system. If a category does not apply, it will not affect the game's overall score. Now let us get started. With Kingdom Come, I originally played this game on the PlayStation 4 back in 2018 for about 200 hours, and only recently did I rebuy it for the PC and started a new playthrough, which I'm only about 60 hours in or so. Kingdom Come Deliverance is a different take on the RPG genre, where instead of a fantasy setting with dragons and magic, this game takes on a more realistic approach to the medieval setting, within Bohemia of 1403, where you play a young man named Henry in a country that is in a civil war. Unlike other games, you will not go from rags to kingship. As a peasant, the most you could ever hope for is maybe a knighthood under your lord, though it is an RPG, so you can choose to adventure and complete the game however you wish, with a morality system with decisions that are completely immersive. But let's not spoil the whole thing right away, and let's get into the rest of the categories. This game can run on a mid-range computer, though I would recommend an above-average computer just for the various factors that go into the game world that can affect lag. As for console, you can play this on last-gen consoles such as the PlayStation 4, the Xbox, as well as the Switch. While there is no character creation, there is now a small amount of customization for Henry within the bathhouses, where they can give you a haircut and fix up your beard. This option was not available originally, as it was an added feature later on. I do like this, it allows me to personalize him a bit more to my liking. Henry himself is a very bland character. I suppose it is because you are to project yourself into him with the various morality and dialogue choices you have throughout the game, but even then, when it's not in a rendered cutscene, he comes off as very empty head, no thoughts meme. I'm not going to rate this section for the simple fact that Henry is supposed to be played off as your choice and your, personality. So for that, I can forgive the lack of personality, but I just wish there was a bit more to him. Oh boy, so the start of this game is a very long one, yet enjoyable. I am purely going to be talking about the Skalitz section here, and not the Talmberg section. So when you start up your game, you are given a quick history lesson to introduce you into the setting. Once you create a new game, it does a quick fly-through of the woods of Bohemia until it reaches a character who is Henry's father, as well as his mother. Once awakened from your hungover sleep by your mother, you are given a few dialogue choices which will help you get a small boost into the stats to start off the game. It could be based on your playstyle, going for vitality or strength and so on. After that, you are given tasks to do by your father. This is where it gets interesting. This whole segment within the village is your tutorial, yet it's completely open and doesn't hold your hand. It will introduce you to a lot of the basic fundamentals of the game naturally. This will either take you an hour or 8 hours, as there is a lot to do just in this part of the game alone, from learning that choices matter and can lead to different outcomes, to the fact that the outcomes can lead to a situation where you might need to think of a solution to your issue. Different paths will have different outcomes and choices that branch. You can learn the dice gambling game for some quick money if you are lucky, or you could get your first combat lessons done and over with. Though they won't help you much in the field for now, they just give you the necessary fundamentals of the combat system. And lastly, the start of the game also teaches you that sometimes quests and NPCs will not wait around for you. The NPCs have their own lives and live their own schedules. One of the tasks given to you is to get a cold ale for your father, and if you wait too long, the ale will become warm, which your father will turn your ass right around to go get another one. Now, all of that is fun if you wish to have a quick romp through the tutorial and be a good boy, though if you play your cards right, you can find a lockpick early and learn how to lockpick, steal from the various NPCs, hell, even kill them. If you took your time and were skilled enough, you can actually kill everyone in the start of the game, including the guards. Just don't get caught, as if you do, you will get thrown in jail, which you'll find the secret ending to the game, which causes you to restart. Now then, the start of this game is going to get a 5 out of 5 for the in-depth nature of this whole segment, and it doesn't hold your hand with how free it is. The exploration is fully up to you. You can go anywhere you want at any time. There are tons of towns and smaller cities to visit, trade within. There are also small settlements and camps out in the country and forests. Though just be careful, because while traveling it is very dangerous, especially along the roads. You can run into bandits, soldiers of the enemy forces, and undesirable encounters. Now we'll cover the combat in the PvE section, but a quick overview is that at the start of the game, you will not be a skilled warrior, so going around the road or avoiding enemies will be your best outcome for now. The map is fairly large, so getting a horse soon will be beneficial. It also helps to have a horse to avoid enemies by running from them quickly. However, do take care, as enemies can and will pull you off the horse if they get a hold of you. Fast travel is limited in this game. You can only travel to the major towns and a few crossroad areas, but it is not an instant teleport. Your character will run to the desired location in a time lapse. Your hunger and stats will be affected as such. Also, the roads are still perilous. There is a chance to be stopped by an enemy and be attacked. You will receive a prompt with a chance to leave or engage. Now, not every stop is an enemy. I made that mistake already. Sometimes when you are stopped, it is not for an enemy. It could be just a simple wayfarer who is traveling and crosses your path. I once assumed it was going to be a bandit, as the prompt made me think that I was being attacked. So I attacked first, only to kill the poor guy as he was running, though luckily there were no witnesses. Out in the world, you won't find a lot of content, but you can find a decent amount of bandits, poacher camps to raid and loot. While there is wildlife to hunt, there is a lack of predators. There are no bears or wolves to engage with. I feel this game needs that badly though. I'll go over the hunting in the survival section. All in all, I'm gonna give the exploration a 3.5 out of 5. While there is a lot to uncover and find out in the open world, traveling can be a bit of a drag at times, and there are sections of the map that pretty much are empty with no reason to travel, such as the forest west of Ratai in the bottom left hand corner of the map. I feel like having more random encounters off the roads would help with this, as well as a greater variety of wildlife. While on paper, this game is not really listed as a survival game, there are tons of various systems that you would typically see in a survival setting. The first most notable is that you do have to eat and sleep. Eating is pretty forgiving in this game, as you don't really start getting any debuffs until you are at 50% hunger. Same with your energy. You can get food in many different ways, from buying it already cooked, or just getting some raw food and cooking it. You can also find cooking pots pretty much everywhere you go for some reason that has edible food in it. Now, they do have a limit of serving sizes, but they will refresh after a short time. I don't really mind the pots themselves, it just seems that they're everywhere. You can even find them in places you don't think that they should be. Now, those pots you do find, you can add things to them, which comes in handy if you wish to dispatch enemies in a camp. If the bandits are sleeping and you don't wish to risk them waking up by assassinating them up close, you can quickly drop poison into the pot and leave them to eat it for breakfast. Speaking of breakfast, as I mentioned before, hunting is one of the ways you can get yourself food in this game. However, hunting is illegal, as all creatures of the forest belong to the king. So you must be careful while killing the creatures of the woods, as sometimes a game warden or the like will come and wander by and will want to inspect your inventory. So when you are hunting, I quickly put my items in my horse's saddle so it will not be on my person if I am checked. Something else you can do is quickly cook the meat. Cooking it will get rid of the stolen icons so you can safely sell it to vendors, which is a quick way of getting coins in this game. Cooked food also lasts much longer than raw food. Raw food will spoil pretty much within a day or two, while cooked food can last a little bit longer or even twice as long. Dried or preserved food will never go bad. Alcohol as well. When you sleep, you will have to find a free bed, as sleeping in someone else's bed will get you in trouble. You will have at least 2 beds that are yours pretty much all of the time. After that, you can kill people and sleep in their bed, or you can rent a room at the inn. Sleeping is the only natural way to save the game, so make sure you sleep often, and the better quality of bed gives you more rest. Now, beyond the eating and sleeping, there are many forms of buffs and debuffs that will affect your gameplay. They are obtained from all different forms of gameplay, from over or under eating, to getting a fresh haircut to boost your charisma. Hell, even after having sex in the game, it will boost your charisma. You could be drunk and even have a hangover, though most would consider that to be, bad to have. There is a drinking skill that allows you to get more benefits from drinking, though at a higher debuff cost when you're hungover. Even when it comes down to the combat and being injured, you can have different parts of your body being injured. Sprains and bleeding are ones that you will come across often. They will give you negative effects that will lower your base health and stamina, but generally are manageable and will heal over time with rest. Bleeding will cause a bleeding effect on the screen with blood dripping down and will cause you to lose health quickly unless you use a bandage to stop it. There is much more to talk about it, but as of right now, I'm just going to rate this section a 5 out of 5 as it is very in-depth with how you get around in the world, but nothing too punishing either. The combat of this game is going to be a hit or miss for many who try it. The developers wanted to make a system where the combat would take on a more realistic medieval combat technique approach. The animations are sure enough there, as well as the grappling and such. But the gist of the actual combat is that there are several points of direction where you want to aim for damage to the enemy. Now, they can read where you are aiming and easily block you, which is why changing your stance and being quick will be beneficial. You have the ability to block with a shield or with your weapon. An indicator will make it a quick-timed perfect block event, which will help give you an opening to attack back if you have these skills for it. There is a main attack as well as a secondary attack, which is generally just a stab. Now, when I played this on the PlayStation, the combat, played out just fine. It took getting used to, but the mechanics behind it worked. Now, on the computer, I do have an issue with the mouse and keyboard. I found that using the movement of the mouse to change the directions of your attack is terrible, because if you move the mouse too much, Henry will disengage as if you're turning around to run, and it ends up making me open for attacks by the enemy, which I hate. So the points are lost there for not being so well thought out, with the combat for PC. It works with a controller because you could just simply tap the directional, which makes it less likely to untarget. Now, the combat system itself is easy enough to understand, but remember what I said earlier, that you will not be able to take on the world straight out of the tutorial. It is realistic that a boy who has never had to face hardships or combat would have never been trained to fight. So obviously someone with skills in fighting would easily overpower you. With that low skill level, the weapon of choice combined with your strength level, as well as a few other levels, you will have a more or less chance to overcome the opponent when grappling or hitting their armor and shield. Though once you get a few hours into the game, you will have unlocked the ability to train with a certain character, which will allow you to gain a few early levels in your weapons so that you won't be fully disadvantaged. It is also realistic that taking on more than one person will be much harder, if not impossible. That will be the same here. While you are still low leveled, it will be nearly impossible to take on a group of enemies. Though as you level up and get a pet dog, some armor, there are ways to make it work to your favor. But it is generally better still to avoid groups or pick them off one by one. Now, fighting enemies can be easily cheesed. I personally kited them while on horseback and shot them with arrows. It makes taking on a whole bunch of enemies at the same time much easier, though again, as I said before, you do have to be careful because they can pull you off the horse and then just beat you into the ground. The option to fight with a dog was added in a DLC. The dog does help in getting the attention of the people to allow for opening strikes. though if you are a stealthy player, the dog isn't the best for you as they will cause a lot of noise. You can also seek out people to train you for a fee, which will gain you a level or so, though there is a limit to how much they will teach you, so you cannot just pay for every level. One of my favorite parts of the game are the several different siege quests that you can go to. One of them, you get to raid a whole village of cumin, where depending on choices from before, the quest will have it either be harder or easier of a time to complete. You have the option to sabotage their camp beforehand, which I highly recommend, or it will be much harder to win the fight. But sabotaging it can also be done in many ways, from dressing up as a cumin and pretending to be one, so long as you don't get caught, to sneaking in and poisoning their food, removing arrows so they can't use it, and so much more. Now then, for this section, I'm gonna rate it a 4 out of 5. I dropped it a point because of the issues I mentioned before with the mouse and keyboard versus the D-pad on the PlayStation 4 controller. This section is for how the story is delivered to you, which is mostly through various cutscenes, quests, dialogues, books, and other forms of storytelling. Now, the setting of this game is set during a specific real-world event in Bohemia, now known as the Czech Republic. While the majority of this game was developed to be in English for the wider audiences, there are many moments within the game where the native language can be heard, typically in the form of songs or curse words. Some of the main story can be altered by choices, but the overall story will still play out as normal. However, side quests and optional quests can all be finished in a wide variety of ways based on your choices or lack of, which both rewards and punishes the player, but not without ways to think your way out of the issues. The cutscenes themselves can range from rendered animated cutscenes using the in-game models to in-game dialogue cameras where you could clearly see the animation is more stiff. I will say the rendered cutscenes for major events are well done and gets the point across. It is used more often at the start of the game rather than in the middle, and it is a great way to introduce the character to the overall story. Just beyond the main story, there are tons of side missions that can be almost fully controlled by you and your choices in terms of the outcome. I do have a small issue is that some of these outcomes completely go off the rails, which, yes, can happen in real life, so it makes sense that a simple gesture that you think is harmless can lead to larger mistakes. But that seems to be rampant, especially with the sexual encounters. The famed drunk priest quest is like this, where he asks you to join for one drink. If you agree, you are thrown into a cutscene that one drink turns into a drunken partying all night, and then suddenly you're in an orgy in a barn, only to be woken up, hungover, and forced to give a Sunday sermon. It is hilarious, in one hand, and I actually love this questline a lot. However, I do understand people's issues with it not being completely open as such. For those who want to try to get the achievement to beat the game as a virgin, I mean, why would you do that? Who knows? But yes, there are several quests like this that you do need to watch out for. Several DLCs were also added to increase the quest pool, such as the one where you get to relive the Skalitz raid, but from the point of view of Teresa. There is also the Ratai Tournament Scandal questline, as well as the Band of Bastards and From the Ashes questlines. So, with that being said, the delivery of the story is going to get a 5 out of 5. Now, some people may see some issue with the story in terms of, it's not really a long story and it leaves many things open in the feeling of, yeah, but what about X, Y, and Z? I'll try to not be spoilery here, but I will have a spoiler section after this that you can optionally skip. Now, the first half of the game is very good. It is very engaging with decent cutscenes. Henry befriends people never thought possible and solves issues within this region of Bohemia, which leads to several decent siege battles. Though the last part of the story ends almost like a cliffhanger, there didn't really seem to be any real main conflict with a proper start and end. The game is, Henry simply living out a chunk of life in the Middle Ages and having to deal with the current war on his doorstep. So with that, I'm just going to rate the story an average of 3 out of 5. As I said, there's a lot of good here, but seemingly lacking in other places. This will be the spoiler section to clarify what I said just now, so if you wish to skip, please click to the next chapter. The first part of this game is with Henry and how he deals with the raid of Skalitz. This is a great intro into the game. As I said before, it is very engaging, though it becomes his mission shortly after to return the sword of Sir Radzig, which was stolen by the Cumans who invaded. By sleuthing for a few hours in-game, you eventually find the camp where one of the raid leaders had been hiding, though no sword in sight. From there, a secondary mission was given to you as it is found out that there is fake currency being distributed for mercenaries in order to fund an uprising within the region. This becomes your new goal to complete, which leads to 2 more siege-style quests and the eventual return of the sword, thus ending Henry's journey by having him and his noble-born buddy ride off to new adventures. At this point, we all know that this is where the second game picks up, but years ago we did not know about a second game. So, with such a basic fetch quest storyline after such a flaming start, it just felt very generic and lackluster, with not a real conclusion. This is why I'm a bit torn on the rating, but either way, as a reminder, this section is a 3 out of 5. So let's continue on with the rest of the review. You can easily complete this game without doing the majority of the content, which means after you finish the main story, you will still have plenty of things to do. Though, of course, the more you play and the higher level your skills become, the game can become a bit too easy as you reduce the amount of challenge needed for various things. Either way, as a medieval life simulator RPG, this section is going to get a 5 out of 5. There is a reason to continue playing this game for hundreds of hours just beyond the main story. Plus, of course, you can have multiple playthroughs and have them all be completely different based on the different choices you make. The game is now a finished product with plenty of optional DLC content that was added post-launch. Of course, you can purchase the version of the game that allows you to get all of the DLC content added, including the tournament side quests and the Woman's Lot quest line. So while you most likely will never see new content for this game, as the team is currently working on the second game, you will not be disappointed with the package deal. When I very first played this game on launch day, this game, I swear to God, was unplayable. You know, all of those videos of Skyrim bugs where everything just, goes off the rails, models stretch out, creatures flying around and so on. I always thought that those were exaggerated, as I had never seen anything like that in any video game, including other Bethesda games, until I played Kingdom Come Deliverance. I had a literal game-breaking bug where one of the NPCs of the first Skalitz section was registered as an enemy, and he would run up to me the second I, made my character and could walk outside of my door from across the town, and he would straight up kill me without, provoking him. Making a new save didn't help either. I had to completely reinstall the game to fix it. I had so many more game-breaking bugs that I swear nearly made me get off my ass and go back to GameStop to return my copy. I did have a funny bug though, that I just love to tell people this one, where during the cutscene where Teresa saves him after burying his parents and she calls the bandits, goat fuckers, the camera panned to her, right, as she said that. And for me, her model was broken, so her breasts stretched off the screen, and then as the camera panned back to Henry, her breasts were still stretching off the screen. It made me die laughing, like, Jesus Christ, God bless Teresa's tits. She saved me. But yeah, now, all of that, of course, was during the first few days of the game. Since then, the majority of the bugs seem to have been fixed. With this new playthrough, I didn't encounter nearly as many game-breaking bugs as I did in the early days. The worst that happened was maybe that I fell through the floor while boar hunting, but, other issues I had are mostly during my stealth segments. I don't really like how easily the NPCs are alerted. It can be, raining outside in the middle of the night with clothing that gives you 0 noise, and you can have skills in, stealth. And the NPCs will still wake up randomly even before you do anything. So thieving in this game is very hard to do properly. I did find some other NPCs that were broken, with their scripting, and they'd just kind of get stuck in a loop or something. But, even with that being said, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be, so I'm Gonna rate this section a 2 out of 5. I know it's still kind of low, that's just because the bugs that I did find are still distracting and annoying, but they're not game-breaking as a whole, so your experience may differ from that. My overall score for Kingdom Come Deliverance is going to be a 4 out of 5. This game excels at the open world and the freedom that it can give a player, while still retaining the old school RPG nature of the skill system. The combat is a bit hit or miss. Fans of action combat games will not enjoy this game. This is a bit more slower, thought out for combat. I would still highly suggest this game and found it to be very in-depth and enjoyable. I can't wait for the second game to come out in the future, and I will plan on playing it and reviewing it at that time. So until then, I'll see you guys next time. And that is the end of this video. If you liked my review, please subscribe to this channel as I will be making more in-depth reviews of open-world sandbox survival RPG games, including those that no one ever talks about from the deepest, darkest depths of Steam. Some games that even look like the muck at the bottom of my pond. If you have any suggestions for what game to do next, please comment below and like this video. Florida Gator Man out.